You got it?
So, like, what did you guys get with your surveys back?
Well, like, I got a couple negative ones, but I only had one person that was actually really positive outlook on union.
Who was it?
His name was David Bell. He works with Family Plumbers, and he's in the Tennessee Pipe Trades 538, and he says it's useful because it helps provide a unified voice for him because he wants to be a plumber for the rest of their life, and like helps them train and furthers their education because.
Is he in the union?
Yeah, he's in the union.
Okay.
It's great positive.
So your other two, what were their jobs?
My uncle was at the VA, and he's very vocal about his opinion, so he didn't really give me an answer on his, but don't know if I should share his opinion on it.
No, it's okay.
Well,
Was it?
he says, I just don't care because I'm not involved, so it
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right, yeah, okay.
And then I interviewed my dad, and he was very neutral. He said, like, he could see the downsides, but he could also see where it's very positive, where they have a voice and they have a good work environment.
I thought I asked my mom, and she works at her house, and she said no, because they're not always willing to consider changes to the and what would make the companies better. And then I asked my stepdad, who works for Links Services, and he said no because they inflate wages beyond reasonable and can force people to strike, which causes union workers to not get paid. And then one of my mom's friends worked for the Department of Defense, and he said no because the benefits don't pay as much. There's not really any use for them anymore, and they jack up the employees' wages way too much.
Yeah. See, like, when I talked to my grandpa about it, he was in the union with Westlake, but he retired, so since he was in it, he was obviously going to think positive about it. But then I went and asked my dad, and he had a completely different view because he doesn't like it because it jacks up the work wages. And then they're always going to take the union workers first, even though they may not work the best, but because they're union, they're going to take them first, even though they, like, you have to pay them more than you would have to, like, a regular worker. And I asked my grandma about it, and she was just neutral, but she's never really worked outside the home, so
Yeah.
she was just.
Was
she's
it the
heard-
grandmother of the?
It was
the
my
same?
dad's mom.
Okay.
So, like, she's heard my dad talk bad about them, and then heard my grandpa say great things. And so I didn't know. But my grandpa liked it because, like, when he got burned out there at Westlake, like, the union paid the medical bills and all that for him. So he was just kind of, because of that, you know, it
Yeah.
really helped him in that time. So
Okay. So as a whole, what's the majority of your response?
I think a negative.
I think so too, yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that your survey is biased in any way?
Possibly to the area that we asked you.
Okay. How? What kind of area are we?
Well, like we heard like two people come in, and one of them was very clean, and the other was just on the business side. It just seems like they're, I don't know.
Like, one made it sound like great,
Yeah.
and the other one just told you, like, the cons that they
Yeah.
were playing against. That
So-
they had their demands, and they make the list where they put stupid things and then mark off. That way that they always get what they want 90% of the time.
Okay. So it depends on who you ask as to what their opinion is, right? So that makes it not as valid. So did you have anybody that was not a union member that was very much in favor?
All my people I asked, none of them were in a union. And
They were all.
Yeah, they were all against it.
It's kind of interesting to, all the people that are for it are
Right,
all
yeah.
union members or associated with it.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, so think about think about the way that you see unions as an importance to you and to society in general. Okay? What are you all discussing?
We're discussing how unions would affect us. And looking from the laborer's point of view, later on when we get jobs, we're going to want health care, we're going to want retirement, and whether labor unions are, like if they're more successful now, they're more likely to be more successful in the future, and if they're kind of falling a little bit, then it's gonna definitely affect us if we end up becoming a labor force.
Okay.
I mean, you've got to kind of look at it. If you end up in a union job, just depending on whatever it is, industrial or craft side, I mean, they're going to affect you as far as your wages and your benefits and everything. I mean, even they could end up, a strike could end up shutting you out of the company for that matter. I mean, but I think they kind of, right now they don't affect us as much. They affect our parents more. But, I mean, when we graduate college, we're going to be looking for jobs, and so that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of scary because we don't really know what to do, because both sides has its pros and cons. But, I mean, see, I'm a little more pro-union if you were in that side of things, just because I think that you're going to get a lot better wages, and they're going to protect your job, and they're going to, I mean, they kind of help you out. It's kind of like always having somebody to have your back. But
And your dad has his own business, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think it's interesting. Think about how your dad runs his business and how he treats his workers. And he obviously doesn't have union workers, right?
No.
Okay, so how can you relate to some of those issues from the business side of it?
When you look at it kind of a small business, because I think he's got 12 employees right now. I mean, you're not going to have any union interest in a business such as that, and so it's kind of nice for them because when there's so few employees, we can look at each individual one and go, okay, well, this guy works really, really hard. He needs to get paid more over this guy that doesn't work as much. He doesn't need to get paid as much. But at the same time, if you look at it, like say we had 1,200 employees, then you don't know every single one of them as much on an individual basis. And so the union's a lot more needed in something such as that because it helps protect them. But I mean, everybody that we all work with and that is employees of my dad, we're all friends with because we work so closely with them. So
Yeah.
it's not as much needed in a smaller business.
And could you relate to what, I think it was Mr. Thweet that said that the smaller businesses or the smaller companies can't afford to have unions? Because you could see how that would be a problem, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, like if we had to pay all 12 employees the exact same amount, there's no way we could do it because we would have to pay some of our guys that are more specialty guys. We'd have to pay them more, and if the rest of them are union, then we would have to also pay your part-time kind of guys that don't do as much, but you have to have them. We'd have to pay them as much as your specialty guys, and so that, I mean, there's no way you could be able to stand it and run the business. Smaller.
Ellie, I heard you ask Mr. Thweet about your mom and how your mom wasn't.
Yeah, my mom works at Midwest Vaco in Wycliffe, and she's actually one of the people that I surveyed when we did our survey. And like from her standpoint, she's not allowed to be in the union at Midwest Vaco. All of the hourly employees at Midwest Vaco are in the union. They have to be in the union. And there's not very many people that work at her plant that are salaried. Like that's what Mr. Threet was telling me, like explaining to me that she could not. There's not enough of her to have a union. So that kind of like relates to like a small business, like you were saying. There's so little employees, and like being able to afford it and stuff like that, and making those demands that obviously small companies can't comply with. But my mom said that I asked her. I didn't ask her, like it's not written down on the survey or anything, but I asked her if she could be in the union or if she could have a union, would she? And it's kind of like I heard you over there asking them about people that aren't in the union, most people that aren't in the union aren't for unions. But my mom was kind of an exception. She said that if she was able to be in a union, that she would definitely be in the union if she could, because she thought that they were really positive things for the workers. But at her plant, even though she's not in the union, it's kind of like everybody at her plant gets along and the management works really well with the
Yeah.
union workers. So I think that's a really good, even like if I were to go into a job where I was going to be management, I would definitely look for a place like that where the management and the union workers all coincide and work really well together
Yeah.
and are able to agree on most things.
I thought that was good from Mr. Weeks' point of view, that he had that perspective, that it could be beneficial to everybody if they work together, so.
That's true.
But, yeah. But, so none of you all have jobs, right? I mean, you work, yeah, but if you know people that have jobs, if you think about some of the working conditions, do you have friends that work like fast food or anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Rachel Northcutt works at Wilhelm.
Does she, we haven't even gotten into all this, but if you think about how even just the presence of unions in society, how that affects just working conditions and workers' rights and all of that, and it does influences your dad's business, it influences even your mom who's not union, it influences, people that work in fast food, so that's something that you can think about too.
It's like peer pressure kind of, because
Yeah.
you want to, if you have like a small business or a smaller company, you want to avoid the creation of a union by treating your employees the way that they should be treated without having to bring in all the drama of a union.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That may not be totally true because of also labor laws. You're protected from harsh environments when you work, and you have a minimum wage law,
Mm-hmm.
and you're protected whenever you're
And what
laid
role did
off.
the union play in that
Labor
too?
laws were created by the union, basically. I mean, look at like Pullman, whenever they were trying to keep the rent the same, really high rent, but they weren't giving anybody jobs. I mean, it caused a huge strike. It's just companies have to honor the employees' rights because of the union. And so labor laws have been created because of the union. So in other words, to prevent things such as Pullman strike and all that. So it kind of, the labor laws are here basically because unions got started first. So you can think about it that
And
way.
it also is used to decrease the number of unions and violent strikes.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, good, all right. So now you want to think about like on a national scale, how unions are important, or vice versa, whichever you think. All right, guys.
So we decided that national economy is affected by unions because sometimes unions can become too demanding with like salary, and they might want too much money, and then a business can't profit, and then that would affect the global economy because jobs would be sent off where they can become cheaper.
Okay. So what, real quick, your surveys, because I'm interested to see like how each group responded. What were your results of your surveys? I have a feeling on one of Haley's based on her questions for Mr. Wiggins, but what did they say?
Well, I surveyed 3 people, my dad, my mom, and my friend.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, when we were in Wisconsin, he was part of the local 3+7 community.
Mm-hmm.
And he believed that unions provide benefits, like retirement plan and better wages, so therefore they are useful and should not be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
My mother,
No, go ahead.
my mother, she worked for the private sector.
Okay.
And she says no because the unions are too corrupt to be useful to the actual union worker. And this is where it gets into like all the political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
About
So was your dad, what did your dad do?
a drywaller.
Okay, so he was like in a trade union or a craft union. Okay, gotcha.
My other dad too.
Okay.
He's actually not in a union.
Oh, really? But he's a crafts-
plumber.
Okay. So he's a plumber that's not in a union.
Yeah, it's talking to me about how he was working to become like journeyman,
Uh-huh.
and they had to go to the seminar, and there was a union member there, and they were talking